Hello friends, I am Chevy. Welcome back to the gaming channel. It's been a little while, but I have something I'm excited about to show you today, and that is Terraforming Mars, the Ares expedition. We're going to do a little unboxing and a discussion about it. Now, I realize I'm extremely late to the party. While this game has been on store shelves for over a month, we received it on August 10th. So, yeah. I'm late to the party, but that's okay. I still want to talk about it because if you have watched the channel at all, you'll know that a little while ago I did a little love letter to Terraforming Mars, and I talked about my sort of sordid history with that game. This is a very different game. We played it 3 times yesterday, so I feel like I can give a bit of an informed decision. But keep in mind, as I unbox this is the Kickstarter edition, as you can tell by the label, and therefore there's going to be some extra components in here and some fanciness. I could have purchased this at Target. It was available in Target in June. I chose not to because I was excited about my version, and I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm glad I didn't. What's in this box is a significant improvement over what came in the mass market retail edition. So I'm happy that I've purchased this. The dissenters who were upset about it, they have a valid point. You know, as backers of a Kickstarter, we weren't really given full information about the availability of the product, when we were going to get it, that sort of thing. And I wasn't necessarily upset, as I was just disappointed. I was disappointed that I was going to have to keep waiting for something that I was really excited about. And I was really excited about this because there's a 2-player version, and playing at home with my partner is much more, accessible to me, and I wanted to have some Terraforming Mars-like game that I could play at home, and I think that's what's in this box.
Oh, let me jump in here and let you know that I recorded this video a couple of weeks ago, and since that time I have played 7 or 8 2-player games here at home, and the game holds up really well with 2. I did a video about that on my Daily Shed channel, so there'll probably be a link up there or in the description or something if you want to go find out my thoughts on 2-player.
So let's just open it and see exactly how it was packaged. We played my friend's copy last night, so I haven't actually opened this to see what's in here. Right off the bat, we have a imported and distributed in the UK. That's interesting. I don't know what that is. We have the Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition rulebook. This is actually a pretty beefy rulebook. It's, I think, like 20 pages. And there's quite a bit going on in here. This game was billed as a card game version of Terraforming Mars, which if you've played Terraforming Mars, it is a card game. And I don't know... The differences are enough. There's a lot of difference in the way the games are played, but there's still a board in this game. There's still a tiny little board. I'll show it to you here in a second. It's right here. And you still put tiles on here. Now, in this version, the tiles on here don't mean anything spatially. You just flip them over and get a bonus. So they don't have to be on this little board. And other than that, you're keeping track of oceans, oxygen, temperature, just like you would in Terraforming Mars on a board, and you have a score track. I will say right off the bat, this is my least... This sucks. This board sucks. It's terrible. I really wish it just didn't have this. It would be much better if it just had some little straight line track and a pile of tiles. This is completely... It's not good, and I'll show you why here in a second, but what we've got dual layer player boards. This is one thing that is exclusive to the Kickstarter edition. They are dual layer, meaning that they're 2 pieces of cardboard glued together, but it gives you little pockets and recesses for the resources to sit in. And if you've ever played Terraforming Mars with the original flimsy printed player boards, that was a terrible experience. So I don't want to go back to that. And from what I understand, the retail version or the mass market version of this game has those thin player mats. So I'm super, super happy with these. We had no issues using these last night. I really like that you don't necessarily have to pick the cubes up to move them between these spaces. They kind of will shift. but it's also, these little notches make it stiff enough that, or robust enough that when you bump the table, everything on here doesn't go crazy. We have action tiles and forests. So forests tiles still exist, as do ocean tiles. Forests don't go on the board. You just get them as tokens. So these are just 1 victory point, and that's it. And there's a 5 victory point version. Ocean tiles go on the board face down. This is what the face down version looks like. And when you quote place an ocean, you just flip one over and you get whatever the bonus is on the front. So you're going to get a plant and some money, or a card, or a little bit of cash, and that's about it. You still get the TR rating. That all stays the same. What else do we have? We have cubes. We have player cubes in 4 different colors: red, green, blue, and yellow. Seems fine. I kind of wish that we had something other than red or green, a colorblind friendly color, but I have plenty of cubes that I can replace these with in my collection. No big deal. The resource cubes. These I was super excited to see last night because I wasn't sure exactly what we were getting in the box, but these are miles better than the original Terraforming Mars resource cubes. These things are like, they're just plastic. They don't have that coating on it that peels off, and they have kind of a, I hope you can see that, like a pearlescent sheen to them. And then we also have these clear cubes, and this is why I was saying the board sucks, is these clear cubes in particular. These 2 clear cubes are supposed to be the markers for your oxygen and temperature track. And as you can see, in some positions, this marker is bigger than the space on the board. Significantly bigger. And it's also prone to that. Now, in this version of the game, it doesn't matter so much exactly where this is. It does matter because that triggers the end of the game, but most of the cards that have temperature or oxygen requirements just have a zone. So you either have to be red or higher, yellow, higher, white, purple, whatever. So the exact place this is at the moment you're going to play a card isn't a huge deal. And it's fairly easy to figure out where this was supposed to be. But it's still just, this is not a good solution. Also, these spaces where the player markers go are exactly the size of a player's cube. And that makes it very difficult to figure out exactly where your cube is, and especially once everybody's bunched up together. I really don't like this board, and I really think that I'm going to replace it with something of my own design that will still fit in the box. We'll see. But anyway, the resource cubes, huge improvement. Another thing that we got in the Kickstarter version that is not in the retail version are these nice little trays. These are actually pretty darn nice. They're beveled on the inside, so once the cubes are in here, you have absolutely no problem just scooping them out without, you don't have to pick them up. You can just slide them up the side of the cube tray. Really, really happy about the cube trays. I like those a lot. We also got extra cards. I'll show you those in a second. We have some player phase cards and player aids. This game is played, it's an action selection game or a role selection game if you've played Puerto Rico or Race for the Galaxy or San Juan or any of those types of things. Each player is going to have a hand of cards that are their actions. Where's the tiles? You've got development, construction, action, production, and research. And everybody's going to choose one of those, and then we all reveal simultaneously, and those are the phases that we're going to have for that round. So if some of these weren't chose, you just don't get to do those things. And then if you chose that phase, you're going to get a small bonus. Very similar to a lot of classic games, and it works really well, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Card dividers for the various cards, and then of course the cards. And I don't have sleeves on these yet, obviously, because I unboxed it, but I did notice last night that my friend's copy, everything fits comfortably in here, even in sleeves. We also, as part of the Kickstarter, got a whole pack of promos. I think there's like 20-something promos in here. This is not in the retail edition, and they're okay. I'll tell you about that in a second. So that's what's in the box. Bunch of cards. Like Terraforming Mars, there are over 200 unique cards that help you build an engine or help you gain more resources. But your familiarity with Terraforming Mars is not necessary here. There are similar mechanics. There is a price reduction for having buildings. There is event cards, which are one-shot things. There are action buildings as well as production buildings. So there's a lot of crossover, but there's also a lot of dissimilarities. For instance, in this game, the only resources that you actually track production of is mega credits, cards, which are a producible item now, heat, and trees, forests, whatever. Plants. They're called plants. You do not track actual cubes of steel and titanium. Those are just a discount. So if I produce 2 steel, I'm going to get $4 off of every building that I build, ever. Which can make some cards free. It can make some cards less than free, but you don't get change back. Titanium does the same thing for space cards. So there's a lot of similarity, but it is a very different game, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. We played 3 games last night. I came in last all 3 games because I really felt like I didn't understand how to score in this game. The main theme of scoring is very, very true to Terraforming Mars. You get points every time you raise the temperature, the oxygen, or you play a greenery. And so those 3 things are probably going to be your main point scoring engines in this game. There are point scoring cards, but in my experience, I mean, in 3 games, I think I maybe saw 1, and I never really got to use it. In fact, I think I might have discarded it because it was useless to me. Oh, that's the other thing I should say. All cards are always worth 3 credits, and you can just chuck them whenever you want. And part of that is because you don't get to choose your cards in this game. There is no choice. There is an optional rule to do like a mulligan at the beginning. You get 8 cards. You can mulligan any of those that you want, and that's nice. But after that, you really don't get a whole lot of choice. There is an action that you can choose called Research that lets you draw a card. That lets you draw 2 and keep 1. And if you took the card, you get to draw 5 and keep 2. So there is a little bit of I guess, quote, drafting there, but for the most part, you're kind of just going to get stuck with whatever you got. When you get research, or when you get cards from production, you don't get to draw a hand of cards and select, do a draft. You just get a card, and whatever that card is whatever that card is. For the most part, it's probably just going to be 3 mega credits. You're just going to discard it, and I got 3 mega credits. Okay. So it can be very, very difficult to tune your engine. A lot of the cards that give you those big points will have huge requirements. Like you have to have 5 science tags in play, but getting 5 science tags is, it's non-trivial. It's difficult. If you've played San Juan, for instance, it's going to feel very familiar that you need to be digging for cards that you will need to score. There are big scoring cards in here for a lot of the various tags that you might have, or even just having cards of a particular color. I think that a couple of the familiar cards from Terraforming Mars were completely redone to provide new scoring abilities or just new ways of generating income in this game. I know I had one last night that scores 1 point for every 3 blue buildings that you have. So, digging for blue buildings, or if you have a bunch, maybe you're digging for that card. It can become a bit of a challenge to try to figure out exactly where you're headed, and I felt like a lot of the time I would start the game with a strategy that felt okay, whatever the corporation was that I chose, but halfway through the game, I just was not seeing any of those cards, and I really had to pivot. And at that point, it's too late. This game is not Race for the Galaxy. It's been said that this is Race for the Galaxy reskinned. It is not. I think that in Race, it really is a race. Like, you're really trying to, get to a threshold, and that's it. Whereas in this game, you're trying to play. You're picking your actions much more carefully based on what everybody else is doing, but also based on where the various global parameters are. And that can become a little bit overwhelming. It can become a little bit difficult to determine, is it too late to try to switch? The chances are, if you try to switch strategies mid-game, yeah, it's too late. You're not going to win. You're going to get hosed. And that really sucks, unless you happen to have like a huge card draw, or you happen to have some ability to go dig for what you want, which I don't think exists. I didn't see any cards that did that. But for the most part, you're gonna be a little bit more reactionary in this game. You're gonna be a little bit more just making the best out of what you got, because you really don't have a whole lot of choice otherwise. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that actually is more of a puzzle. It felt like, to me, more of a puzzle than Terraforming Mars. Whereas Terraforming Mars was more about that card draft. It was more about that initial setup. It was more about maximizing your credits and your resources each turn. This doesn't have that because there aren't rounds. I mean, there are, but they're not rounds where you have a certain, the clock is ticking. That doesn't happen. It's more like the clock is just constantly moving away from you and you're trying to catch up to it. And I liked that feeling. I thought it was a very good feeling. I said I would get back to the promos. We didn't play the promos at all in our first 2 games, and I think we threw them in our last game. And I feel like the corporation promos that are in here are significantly better than all of the base game promos, and that can be a little bit of an issue if you're just going to take these out of the box, shelf them up, and throw them in. I would love to hear your opinion on that, but I felt like maybe these cards weren't balanced quite as well, or maybe they were balanced against each other, but not the main game corporations, and maybe you should choose to play with one or the other. I don't know. That's up to you to figure out on your own. But overall, I'm super duper happy with it. I can't wait to play it 2-player. We played 3 4-player games last night, and I really felt like I was playing a version of Terraforming Mars. And it was exactly what I expected out of the box. No, that's not true. It was not exactly what I expected out of the box. In fact, what I expected out of the box was a more accessible version of Terraforming Mars. I would argue that this game is less accessible than Terraforming Mars. I think Terraforming Mars would be an easier game to teach to new players. I think this game has a whole lot of difficult concepts that make this maybe just a little bit more advanced than Terraforming Mars. And our first game went longer. We could have played Terraforming Mars faster than we played our first game of this. Now, that being said, we got 3 games in 5 hours or something like that, 4 hours, but I felt like at least that first game, we were kind of pedaling along, and then in the last couple of games, we really ran at this board, and the game ended pretty quick, which I think is the majority of how it'll be played. But I'm just curious, what do you think about the game? Have you played it yet? Are you interested in playing it? Are you planning on playing it? And if you are, or not, is it due to your relationship with Terraforming Mars, or is it in spite of your relationship with Terraforming Mars? Do you have a relationship with Terraforming Mars, or are you coming at this more from a card game player, like maybe a Race for the Galaxy player who wants to see it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, any thoughts that you might have. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop those down there too, and I'll answer them as best as I can. That is Terraforming Mars from publisher Frix Games and Stronghold Games. Yeah. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing. Leave a like, leave a comment, do all the things you're supposed to do to help YouTubers stay on YouTube. Share the video, whatever it is. I really appreciate you stopping by. I hope I'll see you next time. I don't know what I'm going to do for the next video. We'll figure that out. Tell me in the comments.